Story 1. The motion sensor outside office 1-4 kept turning on. Every 30 seconds. Click, flash. Dark again. I remember standing frozen at the end of the hallway while my radio hissed softly against my chest. The entire office floor was empty except for me, but every time the light outside office 14 flicked on, I saw a shadow move behind the frosted glass. And then the janitor whispered behind me, "Don't let it know you saw it." I spun around so fast I nearly dropped my flashlight. The old janitor stood there holding a mop bucket, staring directly at the office door with an expression that genuinely scared me more than the shadow itself. His face looked pale under the dim fluorescent lights. Then the motion sensor clicked on again, and this time, the shadow inside office 14 waved at me. "My name's Tyler Reed." I was 28 years old back then, working overnight security at a corporate office building in Denver, Colorado. The place sat on the edge of downtown near an abandoned rail yard, 12 stories tall, with mostly accounting firms and tech startups renting space during the day. At night, though, the building felt wrong. The hallways were too quiet, too empty. Every sound echoed longer than it should have. Even simple things, an elevator ding, air vents humming, distant plumbing noises, felt strangely amplified after midnight. My shift started at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. Most nights were boring. Patrol floors, check stairwells, lock side entrances, fill out logs. That was it. But my third week there, I noticed something strange in the patrol reports. Every overnight guard before me had skipped office 1-4, not the 14th floor. Small legal records office on floor 6. Every patrol sheet had a blank line beside it. No signature, no inspection time. At first, I assumed people forgot. But after seeing it happen for 2 straight weeks, I finally asked the daytime supervisor about it. He just looked uncomfortable. "You don't need to check that office," he said quickly. "Tenant moved out months ago." That answer should have satisfied me. It didn't, especially because every single night at exactly 12:14 a.m., the motion light outside office 14 activated. Every single night. That's when I noticed something worse. The motion sensor never activated for anyone walking toward the office, only for movement inside it. I tested it myself one night, walked directly past the office door, nothing. But 2 minutes later, while I stood 50 feet away, click. The light turned on again. Something moved behind the frosted glass. I remember staring at the blurry silhouette while cold pressure slowly built in my chest. It looked human, tall, standing near the back wall, completely still. Then the shadow slowly tilted its head toward me. I immediately radioed building maintenance. No response. That wasn't unusual after midnight, but the silence still bothered me. I tried distracting myself by continuing patrols, checking stairwells and loading docks while rain tapped softly against the high lobby windows downstairs. But the deeper into the night things got, the stranger the building felt. And then it happened again. At 1:03 a.m., every elevator in the building opened simultaneously, all 12 floors. At once, my radio exploded with overlapping static, while elevator chimes echoed faintly through the empty building. I stood frozen near the 6th floor copier room, listening to ding after ding after ding ripple upward through the tower. Then silence. A second later, one elevator began moving. Only one. Floor 12, 11, 12, 13, slowly descending. Toward me. The old janitor appeared beside me again before the elevator reached 6. I never even heard him walk up. He just stood there pushing his cleaning cart silently. "You should stay away from 14 tonight," he muttered. I frowned. "Why?" The janitor kept staring toward the elevator. "Because tonight it noticed you." That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Before I could ask what he meant, the elevator dinged softly down the hallway. The doors opened, nobody inside. But the carpet floor was wet, like someone had walked through rainwater. Fresh footprints led out of the elevator and disappeared around the corner toward Office 14. The janitor looked genuinely frightened now. "Don't follow those," he whispered. Naturally, I followed them anyway. The hallway lights buzzed faintly overhead while my flashlight shook slightly in my hand. The footprints continued straight toward the office door, water dripping steadily onto the carpet beneath each step. Then they stopped, right outside Office 14. That's when I realized the office door was slightly open, only an inch maybe, but I knew for a fact I'd checked it earlier during patrol. It had been locked. The motion sensor clicked on again above me. Warm yellow light flooded the hallway, and slowly, something moved behind the frosted glass. I should have left. Honestly, every survival instinct I had told me to walk away right then, but curiosity mixed with fear in this horrible way where I couldn't stop myself anymore. I pushed the door open carefully. The office inside was dark, except for moonlight bleeding through distant windows. Rows of old desks sat abandoned beneath dusty plastic sheets. Filing cabinets lined the walls, while papers littered the floor like someone had left in a hurry months ago. But one thing immediately felt wrong. The room looked recently used. Coffee cups still sitting warm beside a computer monitor, fresh cigarette smoke lingering faintly in the air, and a security monitor glowing softly near the back wall. The monitor showed live camera footage from outside the office, showing me standing inside it. But this time, it was different. The version of me on the screen wasn't matching my movements. I froze. On the monitor, I watched myself slowly turn toward the camera and smile. I wasn't smiling. My stomach dropped instantly. Then the fake version of me raised one finger slowly to its lips, like it was warning me to stay quiet. A loud bang exploded somewhere deeper in the office. I nearly screamed. Metal shelves rattled violently in the records room behind me while papers scattered across the floor. My flashlight beam shook uncontrollably as I turned toward the noise. Something had moved back there, fast, and then it happened again. My radio crackled. "Tyler." The voice was barely above a whisper, but it was my own voice, exactly mine. "Tyler, don't turn around." I spun anyway. Nobody there, but the security monitor behind me now showed something new. A person standing directly behind me, tall, thin, face hidden in darkness. The thing stood so close its head nearly touched mine. I whipped around again. Still nothing, but on the monitor, it leaned closer. I stumbled backward hard enough to hit a desk. My breathing sounded painfully loud inside the office now while static hissed softly from the radio. Then the monitor flickered. For one split second, the figure behind me had my face. Not exactly. Close enough to make my skin crawl. Same haircut, same height, same uniform, but smiling too wide. That's when I noticed something worse. The office door behind me had closed. I rushed toward it immediately and grabbed the handle. Locked. I slammed my shoulder against it once, twice. Nothing. Then slowly, someone knocked from the other side. 3 soft knocks. My radio crackled again. "Don't open it." The janitor. His voice sounded terrified. I pressed the radio button instantly. What the hell is happening? Static. Then finally, it copies people. My chest tightened. What does? The answer came after several seconds of silence. Office 14. I stared at the dark room around me while cold sweat ran down my neck. The security monitor continued showing me standing there, except now the other version of me stood closer, watching, smiling. Then the copy on screen suddenly walked out of frame, but I never moved. A second later, I heard footsteps somewhere inside the office. Not mine, slow, measured, circling behind the cubicles. I aimed my flashlight toward the darkness between desks. Nothing there, but the footsteps continued. Closer, and then it happened again. My own voice whispered softly from the darkness. Tyler, not through the radio this time. Inside the room, I backed away slowly until my legs hit the wall near the monitor station. The footsteps stopped immediately after that. Silence swallowed the office. Then the security monitor changed camera feeds by itself. Lobby, empty. Parking garage, empty. Elevator camera, someone standing inside, me. The elevator version of me stared upward toward the security camera with that same unnatural smile stretched across its face. Then it pressed floor 6. The elevator began rising. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My breathing became shallow instantly. Ding, floor 6. The elevator doors opened on screen, and the copy stepped out. The hallway camera now showed it walking toward office 14, toward me. The footsteps outside the office door started seconds later. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The doorknob twitched once, then twice, then slowly began turning. I backed away while panic slammed through my chest so hard I thought I'd pass out. The janitor screamed through the radio suddenly, "Don't let it see you first." The office lights exploded off instantly. Complete darkness swallowed the room. Then I heard breathing, right beside me. Not human breathing, not animal either. Just this uneven imitation of breathing, like something trying to copy the sound without understanding how lungs worked. My flashlight flickered violently as I swung it toward the noise. For half a second, I saw my own face staring back at me from 3 feet away, expressionless, unblinking. Then the flashlight died. I don't remember getting out. Seriously. My memory after that turns fragmented and blurry. I remember smashing through the office door somehow, sprinting barefoot because I'd lost one shoe, hearing footsteps matching mine perfectly, behind me through the hallway, not chasing, following. I reached the lobby around 4 a.m. shaking so badly I could barely hold my keys. The janitor stood near the entrance smoking silently while rain poured outside. He looked exhausted, like he'd seen this before. Before leaving, I finally asked him what Office 14 actually was. The old man stared toward the elevators for several long seconds before answering. "Nobody knows," he whispered. "But sometimes," he swallowed hard, "sometimes it lets one leave." I quit the next morning, never went back. But 3 months later, while working security at a hospital in another state, I saw something that still keeps me awake at night. A new employee walked past me during shift change. Same height as me, same voice, same face. He stopped beside me briefly and smiled, then quietly said, "You looked inside." The silhouette inside my car moved before I even touched the keys. Employer records. I froze in the middle of the empty parking lot, with his name staring through the rain-covered windshield while my heartbeat slammed against my ribs. The figure sat perfectly still in the driver's seat, with both hands resting on the steering wheel, like it had been waiting for me. Then the headlights turned on. My keys were still in my pocket. And slowly, impossibly, the person inside turned its head toward me. "My name's Ethan Cole. I was 33 years old, normally working overnight security at Iron Ridge National Park in Oregon. Most of my shifts involved checking locked camp garden gates, patrolling maintenance roads, and dealing with the occasional drunk camper wandering somewhere they shouldn't be. Nothing exciting ever happened out there. At least, that's what I used to think. The night this happened started with heavy fog rolling through the mountains around midnight. Visibility near the South Ranger Station was terrible. Trees disappeared into darkness barely 20 feet from the road, and the radio kept cutting in and out because of the storm building overhead. I remember feeling irritated more than nervous. That changed around 1:17 a.m. Dispatch radioed me about motion alerts near the abandoned Pine Watch campground. An old section of the park closed after landslides years earlier. Nobody was supposed to be anywhere near it. The gates had been chained shut for months, but somebody had opened them. That's when I noticed something worse. The chain hadn't been cut. It was unlocked. I parked beside the gate and stepped out into freezing rain with my flashlight and patrol radio. The campground beyond looked dead. Empty picnic tables, rusted fire pits filled with rainwater, torn warning signs swaying gently in the wind. Then my flashlight landed on fresh tire tracks. Someone had driven in recently. I called dispatch immediately. Unit 7, entering pin watch for inspection. Static crackled through the speaker. Then a voice answered. Don't go alone. The voice sounded almost normal, except dispatch never used my first name. Ethan, leave. I grabbed the radio tighter. Dispatch? Nothing came back except static. But this time, it was different. I heard another patrol radio somewhere deeper in the campground, close enough to hear clearly. Somebody else repeated my exact transmission. Unit 7, entering pine watch for inspection. My stomach tightened instantly. I killed my flashlight for a second and listened carefully through the rain. Somewhere beyond the cabins, boots crunched softly against wet gravel. Not approaching. Circling, I moved deeper into the campground slowly, sweeping my flashlight across the empty sites. Most cabins were boarded shut, but one near the back had its door slightly open. Warm yellow light flickered faintly inside. I approached carefully. The smell hit me first. Fresh coffee. Someone was there. Park security, I shouted. Come outside. No response. I pushed the cabin door open with one hand while keeping the flashlight raised. The inside looked wrong immediately. Dust covered everything except the kitchen table. 2 coffee mugs sat there, one still steaming. Across from it sat an old park map with circles drawn around ranger stations throughout the forest. My flashlight moved lower slowly, toward the bottom of the map, toward my name, written repeatedly in black marker. Ethan, 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 over and over. That's when I noticed something worse. A patrol jacket hung beside the doorway. Mine. Same security patch, same flashlight clipped to the chest strap, same initials stitched above the pocket, EC. I backed out of the cabin instantly. Then I heard my car alarm, one sharp chirp through the rain, far behind me. I turned immediately toward the parking area near the gate. Through the fog, I saw headlights glowing faintly between trees. My patrol vehicle, engine running. I sprinted back through the campground as fast as I could. Mud splashed up my legs while rain hammered against my jacket hood. Halfway there, the radio on my shoulder crackled loudly, and somebody whispered directly into it. He saw the map. I stopped running. The voice was mine. Not similar, not close. Mine. Then it happened again. My flashlight beam called movement between the cabins to my left. A man standing completely still beneath the rain, wearing my patrol uniform. For one horrible second, my brain actually refused to process what I was seeing. Same height, same build, same beard. Even the scar near my chin looked identical beneath the flashlight glow. But the smile was wrong. Too wide, too calm. The figure slowly lifted a finger to its lips, then stepped backward into darkness. I ran harder after that. By the time I reached the parking lot, my patrol SUV sat exactly where I left it. Engine off, headlights dark, driver's side door closed. Everything looked normal again, until I reached the window. Someone sat inside, not moving, just staring straight ahead, with both hands resting on the wheel. The interior dome light flickered softly above their face. Rain streaked across the glass while I stood frozen, maybe 6 feet away, trying to understand what I was seeing. And the figure slowly looked toward me. My own face stared back. That's when I dropped my flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the pavement while panic slammed through my chest. I stumbled backward immediately, reaching for my sidearm. The person inside copied the movement exactly. Same speed, same expression, except it smiled before I did, and then the car doors locked themselves. Click, 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 every lock engaging one after another. I never unlocked the vehicle. I still had the keys in my pocket. That's when I realized something horrifying. The figure inside had my keys too. It slowly raised its hand toward the window. Same keychain, same ranger badge attached to the ring. My radio suddenly exploded with static. I grabbed it instinctively. Dispatch sounded panicked now. Unit 7, respond immediately. We just received the call from you requesting emergency backup near the North Ranger Station. I didn't call. Then another voice interrupted the transmission. My voice, perfectly calm. He's outside the vehicle now. Every hair on my arm stood up instantly. I backed away from the SUV slowly while keeping my weapon aimed at the windshield. The thing inside tilted its head slightly, studying me. Then the windshield wipers turned on by themselves, back and forth, clearing rain from the glass so I could see its face more clearly. Mine, exactly mine. But this time, it was different. The reflection in the rearview mirror didn't match. The thing sitting behind the wheel stared at me, but its reflection kept staring forward. I fired once through the windshield. The glass shattered instantly. The figure disappeared. Gone. No blood. No movement. Nothing. The driver's seat sat empty. I yanked the door open immediately. Nobody inside, but the seat was warm, and muddy footprints covered the floorboards. Bare footprints, leading into the back seat, then stopping completely. That's when I noticed something worse. The radio mounted inside the SUV was already transmitting. The little green light blinked softly while static hissed through the speaker. Then I heard breathing, slow breathing, from directly behind me. I spun around fast enough to nearly fall. Nobody there, only fog moving through trees. But the breathing continued through the radio speaker. Then my own voice whispered, "You left me waiting." I ran back toward the ranger station after that. I didn't care about procedure anymore. I just needed other people around me. The entire drive back, another vehicle followed behind me through the fog. No headlights, no engine noise. Just a dark shape, staying exactly the same distance behind my SUV the entire time. Whenever I sped up, it sped up. Whenever I slowed down, it slowed down. But every time I checked the mirror directly, the road was empty. That's when I realized something else. The passenger seat beside me was wet. I hadn't noticed before because of the rain soaking my jacket, but now water dripped slowly from the leather seat onto the floor mat. Like someone had been sitting there recently. Then the seatbelt clicked softly beside me. I nearly crashed the vehicle. I looked over instantly. The passenger seatbelt had pulled itself tight, as if somebody invisible had just leaned back into the seat. And then the radio whispered again, "Almost home." By the time I reached Iron Ridge Station, I was shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel straight. I rushed inside and locked the front doors immediately behind me. 3 rangers sat inside the dispatch office. All 3 stared at me strangely when I entered. Finally, one of them frowned. "Ethan, weren't you already here?" My blood went cold instantly. "What?" The older dispatcher looked genuinely confused now. "You came in maybe 20 minutes ago asking for coffee. You said the Penwatch call was a false alarm." I couldn't breathe properly anymore. Then he slowly turned the security monitor toward me. Camera footage, testament, 23 minutes earlier. It showed me walking calmly through the station lobby, dripping rainwater onto the floor. Same jacket, same face. But something about the footage felt deeply wrong. The fake version of me never blinked once, not a single time. The dispatcher rewound the footage slowly. My fake double stopped near the lobby camera and stared directly into it, then smiled and mouthed something silently. I watched carefully while ice spread through my chest. It said, "He's here now." The station lights flickered immediately after, just once, but during that split second of darkness, I swear every person inside the dispatch office turned to look directly at me at the exact same time. Story 2. The lights flickered again, and the man outside my office moved closer. I remember gripping the edge of my desk so hard my fingers started hurting, while the emergency backup lights hummed softly overhead. The security office sat at the far end of the ranger station lobby, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows looking out into complete darkness. Every time the lights blinked, he got closer. First beside the flagpole, then halfway across the parking lot, then standing directly outside the front doors. And the worst part was, nobody else in the building could see him. My name's Aaron Pike. I was 34 years old, working overnight security at a remote ranger station outside Glacier National Park in Montana. During tourist season, the place stayed busy 24 hours a day with lost hikers, emergency calls, and late-night patrol teams. But in October, everything shut down. The forests emptied, roads iced over, rangers rotated out. By midnight, the entire station usually felt abandoned, except for one overnight dispatcher and me. Most nights, I sat alone monitoring trail cameras while snow hammered against the windows outside. That night started normally. Cold coffee, static-filled radios, wind rattling pine trees outside hard enough to sound like distant footsteps moving through the woods. Around 1 a.m., the power grid started struggling because of the storm rolling through the mountains. The lights dimmed once, then came back, and then it happened again. The motion sensor alarm near the visitor parking lot beeped softly on my monitor. I glanced over casually, expecting a deer or maybe a stranded tourist. Instead, there was a man standing perfectly still near the entrance sign. Tall, dark coat, hands at his sides, just staring directly toward the station. At first I assumed he needed help. Maybe his car broke down somewhere nearby. But something immediately felt wrong about the way he stood there. He wasn't moving naturally, not shivering, not shifting weight, nothing. Just watching. I radioed dispatch upstairs. "You seeing somebody outside?" A woman named Carrie answered immediately. "Outside where?" "Front lot." Pause. Then, "Aaron, there's nobody out there." Cold pressure crawled slowly into my stomach. I looked back at the monitor. The man was still there. Then the lights flickered. Just once. Darkness swallowed the office for maybe half a second. When the lights came back, the man had moved 20 feet closer. My chest tightened immediately. Not walked closer. Moved. Like time skipped. That's when I noticed something worse. The snow around him had no footprints. None. The parking lot was covered in fresh snowfall, except for smooth, untouched snow beneath his boots. It looked like he'd simply appeared there, without ever walking across the ground. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped toward the front windows carefully. Outside, freezing wind blasted snow sideways across the empty parking lot. But standing beneath the flickering lamppost was the man, closer than before. His face stayed hidden beneath shadow, but I could tell he was looking directly at me through the glass. Then the station lights blinked again. Dark, light. Now he stood beside the front doors. I stumbled backwards so hard my chair tipped over behind me. Every instinct in my body screamed that something wasn't normal here. I immediately checked the exterior security cameras. Camera 1, empty parking lot. Camera 2, empty walkway. Camera 3, nothing outside the doors. But through the actual windows, he was standing there, watching me. And then it happened again. The radio crackled violently beside me. "Aaron," Carrie whispered upstairs. "Did someone just walk into your office?" I froze. "No, there's somebody standing behind your desk." I turned instantly. Empty office. Nothing there. My breathing became shallow. "Carrie," I said carefully, "what does he look like?" Silence. Then quietly, "He looks like you." The lights flickered again, this time longer. Maybe 2 full seconds of darkness. When they returned, the man outside had vanished. But now, muddy water dripped slowly across the office floor behind me. Fresh footprints, leading deeper into the ranger station. That's when I realized, whatever was outside was inside now. I grabbed the flashlight from my belt and followed the wet footprints into the hallway beyond the security office. Emergency lights cast everything in dim orange shadows while the storm howled outside the building. The footprints moved toward the old administrative wing that had been shut down for winter months. Nobody used those offices anymore except maintenance workers. The deeper I walked, the colder the station felt. My flashlight beam shook slightly against peeling walls and abandoned desks covered in dust. Somewhere ahead, I heard faint movement. Not footsteps exactly, more like someone dragging wet boots slowly across tile. And then it happened again. The lights flickered. Darkness swallowed the hallway. When they came back, someone stood at the far end. Me. Same jacket, same flashlight clipped to my belt, same posture. only standing perfectly still beneath the flickering lights with this horrible blank expression on his face. I raised my flashlight instinctively. So did he, perfectly synchronized. Then my radio hissed softly, and my own voice whispered through it, "Don't let him reach her desk." Static swallowed the transmission instantly. Now, the copy of me smiled slightly. Then the lights flickered again. Dark, light. He was closer now. Way closer. Maybe 20 feet away. Still not walking, just appearing nearer every time the lights died. I ran. I don't even remember deciding to run. My body simply reacted before my brain could process what was happening. I sprinted back through the hallway toward the security office while emergency lights buzzed violently overhead. Behind me, the lights kept flickering. Every flicker brought the sound of dripping footsteps closer. That's when I noticed something worse. The security office door was already open when I reached it, and someone sat inside my chair, facing the monitors. I stopped dead in the hallway. The figure slowly turned toward me. It was me again, only smiling wider now. Too wide, like somebody pretending to understand human expressions. The copy spoke first. "You missed one." Its voice sounded almost perfect. Almost. There was something wrong with the pacing. Tiny pauses in places normal people wouldn't pause. Like it learned speech by listening instead of living. "What are you?" I whispered. The thing ignored the question completely. Instead, it pointed slowly toward one of the security monitors. Trail camera 12. Deep woods near the abandoned fire lookout tower. The camera showed another figure standing motionless between trees. Another copy of me. Then another camera feed changed. Parking garage. Same thing. Then another. Visitor center hallway. Another version. All staring directly into cameras. My radio exploded with panic shouting upstairs. "Aaron!" Carrie screamed. "How many of you are down there?" The office lights flickered violently again, and suddenly the copy sitting at my desk disappeared. A wet hand slammed onto my shoulder from behind. I screamed and spun around, swinging my flashlight wildly. Nobody there, but the hallway lights ahead flickered again. Now 3 copies stood there, motionless, watching. And then it happened again. Every radio in the station activated simultaneously. Voices flooded the building. My voice. Dozens of versions of it overlapping each other through speakers upstairs and downstairs. "Aaron, let us in. You left us outside. We're cold." I backed into the office, shaking so badly I could barely breathe anymore. The security monitors continued changing on their own now, showing copies of me standing throughout the building. Stairwells, storage rooms, hallways. One stood directly outside the dispatcher office upstairs beside Carrie. She couldn't see it, but I could. That's when I realized they only appeared where the lights flickered, like darkness itself was moving them closer. I killed the office breaker instantly. Complete darkness swallowed the station, except for emergency backup lights in the hallways. The flickering stopped. So did the movement. For a moment, everything became silent. Then Carrie whispered through the radio, "Aaron, there's somebody knocking on the roof." 3 slow knocks echoed faintly overhead. Boom, boom, boom. The sound moved across the station's ceiling slowly, deliberately, like something crawling above us. Then another voice came through the radio. Mine again, except this time, it was speaking from outside the station. "Aaron," he whispered calmly, "why'd you lock us out?" Something smashed against the front doors downstairs hard enough to shake the building. I nearly dropped the radio. Another impact followed. Then another. The security hammers outside went black one by one. Boom. Static. Boom. Static. And then it happened again. The backup lights flickered. Just once. When they returned, one of the copies stood inside the office doorway, close enough for me to smell wet earth and pine needles on its clothes. Its face looked wrong up close. Not distorted, incomplete, like certain expressions hadn't loaded properly. It stared directly into my eyes and whispered, "You saw us," before the lights finished changing, Then every backup light in the station shut off simultaneously. Total darkness. I heard footsteps rushing toward me from every direction. Wet shoes, heavy breathing, dozens of voices whispering my name at once. I ran blindly through the dark until I crashed through the emergency exit beside the loading dock. Snow and freezing wind slammed into me instantly while alarms screamed behind the station. I never looked back, not once. Carrie disappeared that night. Officially, they blamed the storm, exposure, possible wildlife attack. But they never found her body, or mine, because sometimes, late at night, the lights in my apartment still flicker. And every time they do, someone stands a little closer in the hallway mirror. Story 3. I remember staring at the security monitor, unable to breathe, because the man standing outside the ranger station door was me. Same jacket, same flashlight clipped to the belt, same scar near the chin, and then the radio beside me crackled. Your replacement just arrived. I was completely alone inside the station. My name's Ethan. I was 28, working seasonal night security at Black Hollow National Park in northern Montana. Most nights were dead quiet. Just patrol logs, checking locked gates, watching camera feeds, and answering ranger calls after midnight. The station sat miles away from the nearest highway, surrounded by endless pine trees and abandoned hiking trails that barely anyone used anymore. That night started normal. Cold wind outside, rain tapping softly against the windows. I remember heating stale coffee in the microwave while flipping through patrol reports from the day shift. Around 11:40 p.m., Ranger Doyle radioed me saying management had finally approved temporary overnight backup because of recent break-ins near Campsite 14. At first, I felt relieved, until the cameras started acting wrong. The monitor above my desk flickered for maybe half a second, just static. I leaned closer, thinking the storm messed with the signal, but when the image came back, camera 3 showed someone walking past the front gate toward the station. That's when I noticed something worse. The person on the screen moved exactly like me. Same slight limp in the right leg from an old hiking injury. Same way of adjusting the flashlight strap every few steps. My stomach tightened so hard it actually hurt. I checked the reflection in the dark window beside me, then looked back at the monitor. The figure stopped directly outside the station door and stared into the camera. I froze, because the face was mine. The radio crackled again before I could move. Ranger Doyle sounded distracted, tired. "Ethan, your replacement should already be there. Just sign him into the overnight log." I grabbed the mic with shaky hands. "Doyle, who exactly is coming here?" Silence for a second, then static. After that, nothing. I stood there listening to rain hit the roof while a figure remained outside the door camera. Completely still. I couldn't hear footsteps. Couldn't hear breathing. Just the low electrical buzz from the monitor and the distant wind moving through trees outside. Then, camera 3 glitched. The screen skipped forward maybe 2 seconds, and suddenly the figure was gone. I immediately locked the station entrance, even though it already had an electronic seal. Then I checked every camera feed manually. Parking lot empty, trail entrance empty, equipment shed locked, no movement anywhere. But this time, it was different. Camera 6 showed someone standing behind a station near the emergency generator. Same height as me, same jacket again. The person tilted their head slowly toward the camera, like they knew I was watching. I grabbed my flashlight and sidearm from the desk drawer. Policy said we weren't supposed to leave the station alone during severe weather, but every instinct in my body screamed that someone was messing with me. Maybe another ranger. Maybe some psycho trespasser. I stepped outside anyway. The cold hit instantly. Rain soaked through my jacket within seconds, while my flashlight beam cut across muddy ground and thick fog drifting between trees. The generator hummed softly behind the building, but nobody was there. No footprints either. That part made my skin crawl the most. The mud around the generator should have shown tracks. Mine appeared clearly with every step. But the place where the figure stood on camera, untouched. That's when I realized something else. The station door behind me had closed. Not slammed, closed gently. I spun around fast enough to nearly slip. The door was shut completely. Through the small glass window, I could see the monitor screens flickering inside, and someone was sitting at my desk. My heart started hammering so hard I actually felt dizzy. I ran to the door and yanked the handle. Locked. I shouted into the glass, but the figure inside never reacted, just sat there staring toward the monitors. Then slowly, it turned its head toward me. I saw my own face again. The radio clipped to my shoulder suddenly hissed with static. Then a voice whispered through it. "Why are you outside, Ethan?" My throat went dry instantly. Because it was my voice, I stumbled backward, away from the door. The figure inside stood up at the exact same moment. Same movements again, same posture. Like a mirror delayed by half a second. Then all the lights inside the station shut off. Everything went black. For a few seconds, I just stood there in the rain, hearing nothing except my own breathing. Then the emergency backup lights clicked on inside, casting dim red light across the room. The figure was gone. The door unlocked by itself. I should have left right then, gotten the truck and driven straight back to town. But panic makes people stupid. I went back inside, trying to convince myself there had to be an explanation. The station smelled wrong when I entered. Wet dirt, metallic somehow, like old water sitting inside pipes. The monitors flickered constantly now. Every camera feed showed static bursts cutting across the screen. And then it happened again. Camera 2 briefly showed me standing in the equipment hallway behind the office. I turned instantly toward the hallway entrance, empty. When I looked back at the monitor, the version of me on screen was closer to the camera. I felt my stomach drop. The hallway camera had no motion delay, meaning whatever was on the feed moved after I turned away. I grabbed the patrol logbook from the desk, trying to focus on something real, something normal. But the moment I opened it, my hands started shaking harder. There was already a signature written under tonight's date. My name, Ethan Cole. Timestamp, 6:14 p.m. I hadn't even arrived until 9:30. I flipped through older pages frantically. Same signature appeared multiple times over the past week. Always during shifts I actually worked, but half the timestamps were impossible. Some logged patrols in 2 different locations within minutes. That's when the radio whispered again. "You missed checkpoint 7. My blood turned cold. Checkpoint 7 was an abandoned fire lookout tower nearly 5 miles north. Nobody used it anymore after structural damage closed the trail years ago. Then dispatch came over the main channel suddenly. Unit 7, report status. I grabbed the radio immediately. "This is Ethan at Black Hollow Station. I need." Another voice cut me off. "This is Ethan, everything secure." My entire body locked up. The second voice sounded identical to mine. Same breathing, same tone. Even the nervous crack in my voice. Dispatch acknowledged it normally like nothing was wrong. Then my own voice spoke again through the speaker. "He's outside the station now." The lights went out completely, not flickering this time. Just dead silence and darkness, swallowing the room whole. I heard movement somewhere down the hallway. Slow footsteps against the concrete floor. One step, pause, another step. I aimed my flashlight toward the sound with trembling hands. The beam shook violently across lockers and supply shelves. Nothing there. Then the footsteps stopped directly behind me. I turned so fast my shoulder hit the desk. The flashlight beam landed on the security monitor instead. Every camera feed now showed the exact same image, me standing inside the station, staring into the camera. But I wasn't moving. The version on screen smiled first. A loud bang exploded from somewhere upstairs. I nearly screamed. Something heavy scrapped across the ceiling, followed by another set of footsteps overhead. The old ranger station technically had a sealed observation floor nobody used anymore. Nobody should have been up there. That's when I noticed something worse. The staircase door upstairs was open. I know for a fact it had been locked earlier. Ranger Doyle personally mentioned the upper level was condemned after water damage years ago, but now cold air drifted down from the darkness above. And someone was breathing up there. Slow, calm, patient. I backed toward the exit carefully without taking my eyes off the stairwell. Every instinct screamed not to go upstairs. But then the radio whispered again beside my ear. "Come finish your shift." I ran. I bolted out into the rain toward the patrol truck so fast I nearly fell twice. My hand slipped trying to unlock the door. Behind me, somewhere inside the station, I heard the front door creak open slowly. I didn't look back. The engine started immediately. I slammed the truck into reverse and tore down the dirt road leading out of Black Hollow. Rain blurred the windshield while branches scraped loudly against both sides of the vehicle. But after maybe 10 minutes of driving, my stomach dropped again. The ranger station appeared ahead of me through the fog. Same building, same flickering porch light. I stopped breathing for a second. I knew these roads perfectly. There was no possible way I'd circled back. I turned around immediately and drove the opposite direction. 20 minutes later, I saw the station again. That's when I realized the patrol log sitting beside me on the passenger seat had changed. A new entry appeared at the bottom of the page. 12:43 a.m. Replacement arrived safely. Signed beneath it was my handwriting. Then the radio crackled one final time. "Ethan, your shift is over now." I looked into the rearview mirror, and someone wearing my face was sitting silently in the back seat.